Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's event, Career-Related Rejection, Stumbling with a Purpose. This is part of the Career Services workshops here at UCSC Silicon Valley Extension. And today I'm excited to announce our speaker, Alex Brown. After attending and graduating from an HBCU Philander Smith, he earned his MBA from Notre de Namur University. He's currently teaching business courses at the community college level and managing the Biosciences Design and Education departments here at UCSC Extension. He believes in sharing the knowledge and experiences as a person has learned with those willing to listen and live by the platinum rule: treat others the way that they would like to be treated. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to Alex and he can take it away.
Oh, thank you so much, Nisa. I'm excited about this conversation that we're going to have. So if you have any questions, please make sure that you send all your questions to Nisa. Of course, she'll share the email address as well. So that way, if you want email, you can contact her, because I think this is a conversation that could definitely start here, but I definitely want you to continue those conversations within your own circles. So a little bit about myself, so that way you kind of know who's speaking in front of you and why do I believe I have the expertise to talk on this subject. So I did graduate from Philander Smith in Little Rock, Arkansas. I do teach business courses. So a lot of the courses that I teach are the introduction to business courses, the entrepreneurship, the business planning, marketing principles, and a lot of it is stemmed around customer service. Of course, you're always applying for jobs, interviewing process, and things of that nature. Some other roles that I've had in the past, I was a coordinator for Upper Bound as a trio Upper Bound coordinator, so helping students prepare for college. So a lot of the times they've had to deal with rejection, and so which stemmed for me to think about saying, hey, we never really had a class in high school, elementary school, middle school, anything along those lines that kind of help us learn how to deal with rejection when we're applying ourselves to certain things, either work related, personally, or whatever the case may be. We kind of just cope with it. I also was a career service coordinator, so I help students prepare interviews, and I help them with the resumes and help them find externships and things of that nature. And then, of course, I'm very active in the community, of course, I'm the program manager for the Biosciences and Design and Education departments here at UC Santa Cruz, Silicon Valley Extension. So another thing, like I mentioned, be engaged. I definitely want to make sure that you're getting the most out of this. And so, of course, that's how you learn. So ask those questions. And then, Nisa, please feel free to stop me whenever you have those questions pop up in the chat. And therefore, I can kind of address those questions. So that way I make sure that students are getting, or the listeners are getting what they want to hear from it. Rejection comes in many forms, as I mentioned before. And so you have to really think of it as a stumbling block or an obstacle that really it's only temporary, it's not permanent. You probably hear different, or you probably have heard multiple quotes about this is only a minor setback for a major comeback. There's a whole bunch of other quotes and things out there. However, I'm going to focus on, or I'm going to bring up the three phases, which I believe are the job search and hunt phase. So when you're searching for a job, you're in that process, you're not employed at this time. And then, of course, the interview, I believe, is another phase, which you can face rejection. And therefore, you'll probably receive those emails after careful review and consideration. We've decided to go with X, Y, and Z or another direction. And so I had to refer back to a lot of the emails that when I was applying for jobs that came up consistently is after careful review and consideration. And then there's an employee phase, which we'll touch on in some of the other slides coming up. So as I mentioned, no one prepares you for work-related rejection, but you can control what you can control. So I say that, so as you're thinking about when you're rejected, either for a job opportunity or you're applying yourself to multiple jobs and things along those lines, that what can you control? You could look at that email as, you know what, it wasn't the right time, wasn't the right fit, and then we'll touch on a little bit like those kind of rejections later on in the slides. But I want you to think about that. How much harder do you work after you receive that rejection? Do you really it's discouraging, but sometimes you have to motivate yourself and then make sure that you believe in yourself that you can apply to some other positions that's going to actually benefit you and or work in your favor and get you that yes. Was it the interview process? Was your resume rejected because you applied in person and you handed your resume over and you're not sure if your resume got to the right person? Or if you're applying online and now with all the algorithms and things of that nature, when it comes to applying online, your resume doesn't have those keywords that might not necessarily trigger in order to get pushed past that first phase of just reviewing and eliminating those that are not qualified for that position in which you're applying for. And then, as I mentioned, how do you respond to that? Multiple places where you can respond, but it's more so after your interview and you're speaking, they ask you, do you have any questions? And then you either don't have any questions or you feel like the question you asked wasn't really related to the work of the position in which you're applying for. And there's a few other ways to respond to that, because you can even ask the question about, why was I not selected for this position? Is anything I need to work on? Those are questions that can be asked in most situations, but a lot of time the person on the interviewing side or the interviewee don't go that route or don't ask those questions. How do you stay motivated? Is there a way to encourage yourself? And then procrastination happens to a lot of us, if not all of us at some point in time, but are you procrastinating for the reason that you are not liking the feeling of being rejected? So in your eyes, you're not updating your resume because you don't know what to do, or you just feel like if you update the resume, it's not going to get reviewed anyway. So you kind of self-sabotage in a way. So some of those things you got to really self-reflect on those items as far as when it comes to work-related rejection. So some of the key takeaways, and I'll bring this slide up again towards the end of our conversation or the end of this presentation, is more so don't avoid rejection. As I mentioned before, don't sabotage yourself or don't say, you know what, I'm not going to apply because I'm not qualified. And the same way that I approached the students that I was working with to help them find the college or the career that fits them, don't eliminate yourself from the opportunity to a position in which you want to apply, that you want to eventually receive. So don't say I don't have the qualified, I don't have the 5-10 years experience. Still apply. However, let them send you that rejection letter if you are not qualified for it, because there's a chance that something on your resume actually is applicable to the job, or it's a direction in which that job or organization are trying to fill in other ways. So then they might see your resume or see your application come in, they review it and say, you know what, they might not be a good fit at this time. However, we are trying to go in different directions or go in another avenue in which we might be able to use that person's talents. So learn from it. Write it down. Some of the things that I'm going to talk about or I'm going to bring up in other slides is make sure that if you are applying to 20, 30 jobs a day, whatever goal you set yourself, if you're looking for a job, of course, make sure you write it down. And some of the things that you need to write down or you should write down are not only when you apply for the job, when is the closing date of that position, who is the contact person, who are the contact people that you need to reach out to ask those questions. Say, hey, I just want to follow up on the position that was available between this time frame when you are following up. So make sure you write those things down, because the only way you really know how many times or how many people or how many jobs you're applying to and how many rejections are you actually receiving, or is it a lot of just no responses and no news situations. Don't add to the rejection by rejecting yourself. Make sure you are confident in your ability to apply to these positions. So yes, it's discouraging. Yes, it doesn't feel right. No one likes being rejected for anything. However, it's just, you have to take it in strides, take it with a grain of salt, but also make it changes to your behavior in that sense of how you're applying, or your approach, not behavior, your approach to that. And then identify how you measure success. We all measure success differently. We all measure failure differently. So even though you might have been rejected for the position or the job that you're applying for, however, if you apply to 20 jobs, that's a level of success. And what you took from that failure or that rejection, either the interview or from applying to it, you probably learned that, okay, maybe I should add these other keywords, the key strengths or key skills that I believe are applicable to any position or any role that you're applying to. And then, as I mentioned, ask questions. Cannot stress that enough. Because if no matter how silly you believe it is, or if you feel like it that it's not going to be taken or received well, still ask the question, because you would like to understand certain things, either why the interview or the questions that you're asking either to the employer or that you're receiving, how you will respond to those. And then quit procrastinating. Cannot stress that enough. Update your resume. If you haven't updated your resume, please always maintain that. So jumping into more so the work-related rejection component of it. As I mentioned, it comes in many forms, but and before I touch on each of the forms that I listed here in the chat, go ahead and list any other forms that you probably haven't, that are not listed above, right? So I said there's you can experience work-related rejection when you're job searching or job hunting, in the interview phase, promotion opportunities, either to promote the job position is opening and you know about it, but you want to apply to it. However, you tried to ask for promotion, you were denied. Negotiation could be another thing, as far as some work-related rejection, as far as you're trying to negotiate your salary, an increase in pay raise, or your performance review, and then that opportunity is missed. And then saying no to your your coworkers. So not only are you able to, of course, receive the work-related rejection, receive rejection in that form, but you also can do the rejecting in the sense of your coworker asks you to cover their shift if you're working at, say, a fast food or a retail or anything along those lines. So you need to know how to reject accordingly, so it doesn't either ruin that relationship or it doesn't or when you need that person because you want to ask them to cover your shift, then it might come back and bite you if you don't know how to appropriately approach that situation. And then, of course, saying no to extra responsibilities. A lot of the times where you're applying, it has a job description or job duties, but it might not necessarily have certain things in it. So when I worked in fast food many moons ago, that was some of the things, like, yes, I know I was going to be a cashier. Yes, I was going to work in this fast food industry, but it didn't tell me that I was going to have to clean the restroom or go outside and sweep outside the trash and take out the trash. You kind of know and assume, but it's not listed in that responsibility. And I see the chat, so someone mentioned asking for a raise. Exactly. Those are some of the work-related rejections. So now that we have identified that, it's kind of, we all have different approaches in how we receive and how we handle it. Let's see if I see any other in the chat. So moving on to the next one, as far as focus on the first phase of your the job search and job hunting. So you're looking for a job and you're not sure how to go about it. And that's where the research comes into play, as far as applying to multiple places. You're not receiving the feedback after you apply. If you're applying online, you're going to receive that saying thank you for applying, but it doesn't tell you, please contact us in 2 weeks to double check on the status of your application. Those are some of the things that we kind of have to internalize and actually go out and seek on our own. So that's why the writing down comes into play. So that way, if you haven't heard from them, you could reach out to them. Some employers really enjoy that when someone reaches out to them. And then it also could be you're not sure who to reach out to. So then you have to identify who do you need to reach out to in that sense. Some of the things that I listed here that you probably should consider is the position, right? It could have been postponed, and all the people that apply to the position, if the position is postponed or has been postponed, they're not going to send out a message and say, hey, we've extended the deadline for when applications are due. Sometimes that may happen, but it may not. And then sometimes the hiring committee, either someone got sick on the committee, so then they're not at full capacity in order to hold interviews. So those are the things that are the unknown variables when it comes to the job search, job hunting phase, and a person might be able to take that as being rejected. So even when I say before applying online, if you're going to, say, the mall, or you're going to each business or organization and you're going to the front desk and you ask that person, are you hiring, right? right? They might send you to their websites. Oh, we're not hiring, or say, hey, go to our website, you can check it out there. So some people might also take that as a form of rejection, because I came in with the idea that if I came in person, that might give me a better chance of actually seeing someone who can make a decision on that, if I can apply, or if the position is open to apply to the job. And then of course, denied an interview, those come in email forms. Sometimes you're not going to receive a phone call, and if you have received a phone call about not getting to the next level of interview, please let me know. But mostly it's going to come in a form of either a no response, or in a form of an email saying thank you for your consideration, or after careful review and consideration. And then when it comes to what you could control, as I mentioned in some of the key takeaways, is okay, that resume probably didn't help. So what are you doing to update your resume? How are you responding to not hearing back from these employers in this job search or job hunting phase? Are you doing your research? And then are you asking for feedback for those that are responsive to you? So if you're doing your research and you're Googling, say if you're applying for a business management position, are you going to whatever search platform that you use and typing in business management resumes, and kind of seeing all of the different versions of the resume, comparing your resume and kind of seeing where you could update and edit that version. I'm always encouraging the people that I work with, that I help update their resumes, and even my students during the classes that I teach, to have a master resume that you're working on, and then you can now cater it to whatever position that you're applying to. So if you are using any of the Google platforms and you have a Google Doc that you're using, and your master table or your master resume is in Google, you can create different duplicates of it and different versions of it, and then title it saying this is the position at X, Y, and Z firm or X, Y, and Z company. And then, you're catering your bullet points and your messaging or your key skills towards that resume or towards that job position that you're reading, on what they're looking for a person who's applying for this position. So it's always in a constant evolving and adding to the skills, or adding to your resume, and then catering to whatever position that you're applying for. And then, as I mentioned, ask for feedback. Looking for the chat, nothing yet. Next phase, as far as the interview phase, there's multiple kinds, or there's a few kinds of interviews, and if there's any other ones that you've experienced that are not listed here, please share that in the chat as well. As far as you receive the email, or you probably even received a phone call about the next steps of interviewing. And then the ones I listed here are face-to-face. You probably have a phone interview first to wean out to see to after the phone interview. Then the next step is probably face-to-face meeting with some prominent members on the team, maybe a couple of managers, department heads, things of that nature. We have virtual interviews that are common, with either between Zoom and Google and Skype and all those other platforms out there. You might have a virtual interview. And then there's group interviews that are probably not as common, but they happen, where you're either sitting in front of multiple people, or you're competing against other people within that same group. So make sure that, one, you're practicing for that, and you're prepared for those interviews. So yes, that sometimes you probably feel like you did very well. You're confident. You left the interview feeling excited that you're going to hear back from someone about the position that you're applying to, or sometimes you probably won't hear any feedback, but that's where you step in, as far as knowing when you did these interviews, when you had the interview, when you applied to the position, and how to follow up and who to follow up with. Sometimes the end of the questions that you should always ask a question at the end of the interview, regardless if you believe you received or learned everything that you need to know about the position. Make sure you have a question to ask. And sometimes the question is, what are the next steps? Who should I be able to contact in order to find out about this position, if it's still open or if it's been closed? But then you really should practice answering those questions. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Probably some of the most common questions. However, a lot of times, those who go into interviews, they either don't want to feel like they're bragging about themselves, they don't feel comfortable enough talking about themselves and their abilities. But what they don't know they don't know, right? So if they don't know how well you could add value to their organization or to their company, but you believe you have all the skills, you fit the company culture or the workplace culture, but they don't know that. So it's really on the person or the interviewee to be able to showcase those skills, and that only comes with practice. When you're having these conversations with your friends, your colleagues, or just your approach to interacting with people in general. Talk about yourself. It's okay to brag. You've done excellent up to this point in your career, in your positions, but you've got to be able to brag a little bit. And of course, there's a thin line between bragging and becoming real cocky when it comes to that. But you really have to master it, and that only comes with practice and repetition. Another important part of this is having a mentor, because in that interview phase, say you received feedback or didn't receive any feedback, having someone that you could lean on that is important to you, that you value their opinion is a person that you is probably your mentor. You probably should consider having a mentor. So for these moments, they'll be able to help you not only with answering questions, but they'll be able to give you honest feedback regarding your approach, maybe your resume, maybe some of the things that you're considering when it comes to that, not only the job search phase or job hunting phase, but the interview phase. And then when we move on to the next phase, which you're already on the job, you're already employed. So if some of you that's on the call are listening to this video now, that you probably are employed, you have a job, you're working. However, there's you really want to move up, either earn more responsibilities with your current organizations, but you're not sure how to go about it. Maybe the supervisor you have, maybe you have multiple supervisors or managers that you can approach, but you're not sure how to go about it, and you might not be the best fit for that position, or not qualified, or not enough experience. And then that goes back to what you can control, in a sense of, if you feel, or if you believe, or if you've been told that you're not qualified or don't have enough experience, then what are you doing outside of the job, on your own time, of course, in order to make sure you have the experience, that you have the knowledge, right? There's enough free tools out there, with LinkedIn Learning, with all the Google platforms, with UCSC Extension, as far as how you develop yourself a little bit more in order to make sure that you're not rejected on the other side when you're actually working for the employer. Because I've heard countless stories from either my students or just knowing people in general, in a sense of they've been in that position for 25, 30, 40 years. They've never was able to move up because they didn't have, I say, the education or the supervisor experience or the manager experience, or whatever the case may be. So you really have to make sure that you're putting yourself in a position. One, let it be known to your employer, either your boss, your supervisor, your manager, your coworkers, that you are willing, interested, and really want to move up and or learn, take on extra responsibility in the areas in which you are interested in. Because if they don't know, then they can't recommend, they can't suggest, they can't give you feedback on that. So really think about those items when it comes to on the job component. And as I mentioned, to deny a promotion, and then as I mentioned, when it comes to just interacting with your coworkers and either your hallway, in the hallway, at the water cooler, in specific meetings, those are the type of times where you're actually building on that relationship, and building on those relationships with your employees or your coworkers really does and really can benefit you. And I know it also has some other effects or other impacts, the opposite, of course, of it being positive, but it really does benefit you, because if you enjoy your job, being on the job, and you really are passionate about it, then you really are able to kind of feel that the work that you're doing is valued. So some things to think about when it comes to being on a job and the potential kinds of workplace rejection, but then also how do you overcome those items? So now we're getting into more so the how to stumble forward, right? How do you see the obstacle? How do you are faced with it, and then how do you bounce back from it, right? And one of the examples, or I guess analogies, or things I could think of, is we probably all have that time where we're walking either down the street on a curve, and we either we catch our toe on the sidewalk, the curb, the street, or this invisible bump, or whatever the case may be, and then we fall. We don't fall, but we kind of have that light jog, that stumble forward, but we don't fall. And that's what the option is. I mean, the one of the options, you could have fell, you could have hit the ground, right? You could have stopped, you could have hurt yourself, you could have said, you know what, I don't want to move forward because I fell, turn back around, go the other way. But if you stumble, you kind of just, you let that momentum take you into the next thing. And some of the things that you probably, that I would encourage those to kind of take some comfort knowing that it's not just happening to you. Rejection happens to almost everyone. If not, it does happen to everyone in some way, shape, or form. And so you really have to take time to kind of look at it from a bird's eye view, in the sense of saying, you know what, this is just one thing that's going to stop me. That's not stopping me, but that's going to be in my way. How can I get around? How can I get over? How can I get through that obstacle? Or after I stubbed my toe and I kind of jogged forward, how do I keep running, or how do I keep that momentum moving forward? So it is normal to receive multiple rejections along the way to finding your success. You'll probably hear other quotes, and I'm gonna mention a couple of them in a couple of slides. Is one no is that's just one no to get to your next yes, right? So that one rejection is just that one opportunity to get to your new success or your new yes. And it's almost like the law of averages or the law of numbers, where you can apply to 100 different places for the number. Eventually you get closer to that yes. And then maybe it's not meant to be. So one thing that you have to, that I'll encourage you to understand, that maybe just it wasn't a good fit. You weren't a good fit for their company, they weren't a good fit for you, and vice versa. So you really have to see that it wasn't the right time. And so maybe after you gain those additional skills, that knowledge, the information, and then if you want to apply to that position again, then it might be the right time at that point. And the reason why you want to make sure you don't burn any bridges or be discouraged too much, because there's probably a chance that you've interviewed for the position, you were liked, you were favored for the organization, but it's just they were unable to use you for that job because either somebody else was more qualified or whatever the case may be. But you have to realize that they might call you back because another position or a different position is available, that you are a great fit based on your interview that you just had with them, or the conversation or your resume that you shared with them. So you couldn't come back for a different role. Number 3 of it is control what you control. I'll probably mention that quite a few times in this. And one thing I share with those that I work with is, if you don't have a full-time job and that is the goal, is to find a full-time job or a side hustle or a secondary job or whatever the case may be, then treat that job hunting or that job search as a full-time job. Or if you want to treat that skill development, that learning those extra skills, either through education or experience in another form, but you have to treat that as a full-time job. If I know for a fact when I was looking for a job and didn't have, I got up the same time I normally would for a potential employer, and then I use that to either update my resume, interact with folks, use the resources that are available to me, either through searching online or through the different platforms, to kind of learn and apply to those positions, because I knew that if I stopped, that means that nothing else is going to come through as far as like an opportunity. You kind of have to take ownership in a sense of, or take control of, okay, I have the ability to apply to one job a day or 100 jobs a day. And then eventually that is all going to pay off in the end. So it's more so just changing your approach, changing your mindset, and then you'll hear me talk about just that improvement mindset that I try to encourage people and students to have. And you probably hear growth mindset, but I think improvement is that adding that additional layer. There's always something that you can improve, not only by yourself, but as a team, as an organization. So if you have that mindset of, okay, what can I do to add another layer to what we already have? I'm not saying forget what you have or what you know and what you learn, but more so just keep adding that additional layer, and then eventually that will be a good recipe for success, for lack of a better term. Adapt and adjust is another thing that eventually you really want to make sure that you're adapting to the situation. If you believe your resume is the thing that's stopping you or preventing you from actually succeeding to have whatever level of success that you want to achieve, then make sure that you're adapting and you're adjusting your resume, your interviewing questions that you have. Take the practice more seriously if you're not taking seriously. Every once in a while, have someone quiz you in a sense of a formal question and give you that feedback. Review your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your networking strategy, any social media, because you don't know if after you apply to a position, after you had that interview, that somebody on that managing committee or the hiring committee Googles you. Either Googled you or LinkedIn searched you, Facebook searched you, and there's a plethora of other social media platforms out there that you probably want to make sure that whatever image that you're trying to showcase to those who are going to make an impression or make a conclusion on what they see, make sure that you're doing what you can to control your branding or control your image. So how are you presenting yourself to that? And then I mentioned about elevator pitches or hallway pitches. Sometimes it's called about a 30-second commercial. So all that is to say that you should be able to talk about yourself in a snapshot and the time that it takes from you to either go to one elevator floor to another, or from the time you're passing somebody in the hallway, or a 30-second commercial when you're watching TV. What can you tell someone that, or a stranger, that about yourself to make them want to learn more, know more, or actually say, you know what, I want to sit down and see what else this person has to say. So some things to kind of work on, and that's the how you adjust component of it. Let's see. And then feel free, still, if you have questions, add the chat so that way we can address those towards the end of the presentation. I have a few more slides. Some other things: manage your expectations, right? What are you looking for? Really identify what you want from an employer. Sometimes it's the ability to work flexible hours. Sometimes it's to work graveyard shifts. Maybe you like working the graveyard shift because now you have the day to do what you need, either for family, friends, or personal reasons, right? Is it the vacation time? Is it health benefits? Is it the ability to grow within the organization? First, identify, not like I said, manage your expectations, but identify what it is that you want out of a job, because that's going to help you narrow your search and help narrow your focus in exactly how do you go about attacking the way to apply to positions or move up within your current role if you're already employed. Keep a running list of your good qualities. So if you know your strengths, you know what you're good at, you speak with your friends, or you had conversations with your friends, and they mentioned about, you know what, you really are great at interacting and getting people to really stay focused on the task at hand. Write those down, because those skills that you can identify and of course explain to someone that doesn't know what kind of skills that you have, you'll be able to, employers and your coworkers will know that, you know what, I can't work with you because I need this on my team. And so start to question your abilities. Find out exactly what it is that makes you stand out from the next person. When you're applying to a job, there might be 100 people apply to that same position, or might be 3 people. However, you should always feel like you're the best person or best candidate for the position, and you have to tell the employer or your coworkers or your supervisor on why you are the best person for that position or for that specific assignment. And you have to do that by highlighting and showcasing your accomplishments and achievements and the things that you've done to get you to this point. The last couple of ones, as far as like how to stumble forward, is self-talk yourself into building an improvement mindset. And so if you have a favorite mantra or a saying or quote, then use it. Make sure you're hyping yourself up, right? Hyping yourself up to the point that, you know what, I can do better than what I'm currently doing, or I want to do better today and tomorrow than I did yesterday. So have that mindset that will help you grow a little bit faster. It'll help you grow in a way that you want to be grown, that you want to grow. And so make sure that list that you're using is something that it's almost like a vision board, right? In the sense of you have your quotes somewhere where you can see it on a daily basis. Some people put it over their mirrors, their bathroom mirrors, or anywhere that you know that you are going to frequent. Have that there to kind of encourage you to say, you know what, yesterday wasn't the best day, but today I'm going to make the most of it. And then tomorrow is definitely going to be better than today and yesterday. So some of the quotes I have there, you probably seen and heard: fall down 7 times, stand up 8, right? Minor setback for a major comeback, and ultimately stay strong and tough, right? Being rejected doesn't get easy, no matter how many times you are rejected. But you have to also feel that you are capable of handling it, so that way it doesn't create a destructive behavior. Because oftentimes when people are rejected for whatever reason, and of course more specifically towards a work relates, we create bad habits, or we start self-sabotaging and helping us cope with these rejections and things of that nature. And then to kind of spin it, celebrate those moments, right? If you apply to 100 jobs, or say 20 jobs or 10 jobs, whatever you set yourself a goal, no matter how small it is, celebrate it. If you apply to 10 jobs in one day, 20 jobs in one day, or for that week or for that month, then celebrate it however you want to. It could be ice cream at your favorite spot, pizza. It could be, and of course I'm speaking food related, but it also could be, I'm gonna go for a walk, or have a conversation with so-and-so, or play a video game, or do a puzzle, whatever the case may be. Treat yourself to stay motivated in your job searching phase, your interviewing phase, and in your being employed phase. If you have to go for a walk to clear your head, go ahead and do that. Listen to a podcast, a music channel that you love, but definitely stay encouraged. So as we come on the tail end of the presentation, before we open up to questions, after we open up to questions, and then we'll better dive down a little bit deeper into anything that some of the in attendance would like to for me to repeat and or address. So of course, don't avoid rejection, learn from it, turn it into a new opportunity. Don't add to rejection by rejecting yourself. So of course, if you're discouraged, encourage yourself in that way. Identify how you measure success and failure, so that way you kind of know what direction you need to go in. Find a mentor. You can't do it by yourself. Most successful people probably did not do it by themselves. So don't reinvent the wheel. Don't try to do it yourself. Ask for help. Ask questions. And then lastly, of course, is quit procrastinating. Update your resume. No matter if you're already employed or not, keeping your resume up to date means that you know your skills, your assignments, your job duties very well enough to elaborate that on your resume or in simple forms. And if you're able to summarize it, then you're able to have those elevator pictures, or the hallway pictures, or water cool conversations. So make sure that by updating it and coming up with that sentence, that 1 or 2 sentences that help you be able to just explain it when you're having to tell people, oh, what do you do for a living, right? That's probably a question you receive quite a bit as well. So you'll be able to kind of use that as approach, and it only helps you in the long run. Last slide is I found this online as far as like essential versus desirable, and I want to conclude in saying that make sure you are showing why you are the best person for the job, right? And I kind of identified several areas in a sense of make sure you're the best person for the job on social media, your digital resume. If you use LinkedIn as your digital resume, or any other platform, from the TikToks to the Instagrams to all the other thing in between, whatever image you're trying to portray to the world, make sure you are the best person, or the best in that specific area. In person, in the sense of make sure you're the best person on the job when you're having those conversations with your employer, with your supervisors, your manager, with your friends, your coworkers, whatever the case may be, because that same opportunity, when a position does become available, rarely comes twice, right? They might say lightning doesn't strike twice in the same spot. So you have to kind of treat that opportunity, or treat opportunities in the same light. So make sure that when that opportunity comes, when it comes knocking, whatever the case may be, make sure you're there to open the door, to answer the call, and all those other different kind of sayings out there. And if you believe that your skills will get you, say, that potential opportunity to have that conversation, but it really is your ethic, your attitude, your body language, and your perceived value to that organization that keeps you there. When people start being let go from positions and things of that nature, is because either their perceived value wasn't there, or their body language, their attitude, their mentality, whatever the case may be, changed or altered in some way in which the person who had the power to say something about it actually made a decision. So you have to make sure that whatever a position that you're applying for, that you are the person that can do the job and no one else can do the job. And it's just a mindset, even though they probably can, but you want to have that mindset to say, I'm the best person for the job, and I'm going to tell you why I'm the best person for the job. And then to yourself, right? Make sure you believe it, you live it, and you become it, right? You probably also hear, if you dress, if you feel good, if you dress good and you look good and things of that nature. So whatever it is that you use to help you motivate yourself and encourage yourself, take advantage of it, right? If it is makeup, if it is clothes, if it is shoes, if it is whatever it is, make sure that you believe in yourself, and then you become what you want to actually do for a career or for a job. Not a big fan of don't fake it, faking it till you make it. Not a fan of that, because you don't want to fake it. You actually want to have the skills to be able to do it, and then you actually will get the job in which you're applying for, right? Because if faking it to me means that a person is pretending to be something, and they're going to be exposed at some point in time. So all that to say, build an improvement mindset, strengthening, adding layers, making sure you're adding to the skills and abilities that you currently have. And other than that, I'll say thank you for your time, and then I'll pass it all back to Nisa to open up for questions or anything in the chat.
Cool. Thank you. So one question did come up in the chat about what are the key points for a 30-second elevator pitch?
So it's really going to vary from depending on when that conversation is happening. But some of the things you want to make sure you describe your strengths as far as like about yourself, because that elevator pitch is pretty much a snapshot of who you are, what do you do to get to the next or to the second follow-up question. So you want to talk about your abilities, where you currently working or what you're looking for. So if I'm a student and I have an elevator pitch planned out, it's more so saying how I'm a high school senior, or I'm a college sophomore, working on my bachelor's in the business administration, and I'm actually looking forward to your organization. I'm looking forward to work in X, Y, and Z field. And maybe even talk about some of the things that you're currently doing at your college or high school level. So yes, you want to talk about yourself. You want to talk about if you're looking for a job, because we're talking about elevator pitches when you're applying for a job or looking for a job and you're crossing paths with somebody. So talk about yourself and where you're trying to go. And then hopefully the response from the person that's listening is a follow-up question that is intrigued and want to know more about what you're actually trying to do or succeed.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I was looking at the chat myself, trying to see if there's
any other questions?
Yeah, any other questions, comments, concerns? And while we're looking for those in the chat, also feel free to reach out to Nisa or to the extension to any other topics or conversations that you want us to touch on. If there's certain areas that you want us to either dive deeper into, we could definitely do that as well.
Cool. If there's no other questions, then we can end today's meeting. And then if something comes up or you think of something later on, please feel free to email extension@ucsc.edu and we will forward your questions over to Alex.
No, thank you for everyone for attending, and thank you for your feedback and questions, and appreciate it, Nisa, as far as opportunity wise.
Of course. Thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you. See you.